I feel that Jazz is the strongest Warrior Quest entry into the Robots in Disguise line after Optimus Prime.
Despite the fact that he's a straight up repaint Silver Bolt, I think that he wears mold well on his own right.
Hello everyone, I'm Starscream0625, and today we're taking a look at the Transformers Collectors Club 2016 Incentive Figure Ramjet. Ramjet comes packaged with a tech spec card, printed on nice cardstock. You have a nice piece of artwork of Ramjet there, and then you have his tech specs and his bio if you wish to read them. So we have Ramjet in his jet mode, and Ramjet is a repaint and head retool of Transformers Generation Sterling 30 Deluxe Class Armada Starscream. And this figure is meant to homage the Universe 2003 Ramjet from the original Armada Starscream mold. And I think he looks terrific. The reds and the blues and the whites really pop. And the silver on his wings, I really like the silver on his wings. The silver runs from where his cockpit meets the fuselage of the jet, all the way down to the ends of his wings. And that looks really nice. It's really, really shiny. Speaking of silver, you do have some Decepticon symbols on either wing, tampographed in silver paint. And speaking of paint, a lot of the blue that you see is actually dye, as G1 Hexatron pointed out in his review. This blue here on the wings almost feels like vinyl, for lack of a better term. And you can see here, as he was packaged, there was no foam insert over the top of the figure, so the cardboard rubbed against the die here on the turbines and rubbed it right off. So you can see that there's a little bit of white plastic showing, but it's not too bad, it's not too obvious. He does have some red here on the insides of his turbines, which are missiles, and if you push these gray clear pieces forward, it'll fire these missiles like so. They'll first pop this red piece out, and then once you push it in a second time, the missiles will fly out. Like so. And they fire pretty far, however, the edge of my studio is right here, so they're not going to go a little too far right now. And they are friction missiles, and they're just molded in gray plastic. And to slide them back in, you just want to make sure you have the gray clear piece pulled all the way out, and you're just going to shove it back in until it clicks, like so. At the other side, just slide it back in, make sure the gray clear piece is pulled out all the way, otherwise it won't go in. And there we go, click. Alright. He does have a nice yellow translucent cockpit. There's some molded detailing in there. This yellow is a little smoky, so it's kind of hard to tell. Whereas if you look at Starscream, for example, his orange cockpit is a lot more translucent, and you can see a seat in there and a control panel of sorts. But yeah, for size comparison, we'll bring back in Starscream, and it looks like I popped his landing gear down. Here he is with Armada Starscream. For some reason, Armada Starscream's red is coming off as a really, really shiny candy red. And here he is next to G-Axis, another remold of the Armada Starscream. Alright, so I think that's about it for Ramjet's jet mode. So now we'll go into his transformation. So here we have Ramjet in his robot mode, and the same great paintwork and dye work that work so well in jet mode work again in robot mode. The colors just pop. And one of the things that also helps make this robot mode is the new head, which, from my understanding, is very close to the original figure. and it looks great. Reminds me of Thunderwing. Or I should say IDW Thunderwing with the jack-o'-lantern face. Really well done. And we'll just go into articulation now. Seeing we were already looking at the head. The head, due to transformation, is really cut deep with a ball joint. So you can look that far up and that far down, and he can do a full 360, and then he can tilt his head that much to the right and that much to the left. Because of this ball joint, his neck looks a little long, but I think the Great Head Sculpt reconciles that. His shoulders go in, or out that far, in that far, and around a mushroom joint inside. So you have good range of movement there. However, the wings do get in the way, and the wings you can position however you want. They have ball joints on them, so you can bring them all the way forward. You can flip them upside down if you wanted to. You can angle them up, bring them all the way back. Your choice. But you have to move them for certain arm poses because as far as his shoulder goes back, they start to interfere with the wings. He has a bicep swivel, really tight, and all the joints on this figure are pretty tight. There is no mold degradation evident, at least in my version of the figure. He has over 90 degrees of movement at the elbow, and then his wrist can move in and out of transformation. He has nothing at the waist, but he does have ball jointed ankles, so you get full range of movement there. He has a thigh swivel. He has, not really sure what that would be called, but over 50 degrees of movement. I'm so sorry. Over 90 degrees of movement at the knee, and you can always feed his hollow legs through the translucent friction missile pieces on his back, and then his feet can pivot that far forward, that far back, and his shoe spur can pivot as well. His feet are molded at a Y stance, so it kind of gives him pseudo ankle tilts. As far as weapons go in this mode, again, he has his turbines, which can be brought over his shoulder. They just peg into his back via this peg and this port right here. And there are two tabs on the underside of each turbine that will peg onto his shoulders, just as they did in the Yoga mode. So that looks so nice. I prefer them down, but they look cool, and they fire in the same way as they did in Vehicle mode. Like so. And they insert back into his turbines the same way they did in Vehicle mode. My apologies. Despite the small size of my studio, I managed to launch the second friction missile off camera, and I had to go and get it. My apologies. But because the shoulder cannons restrict his head movement, I'm going to bring them back down for now. And we'll take out his swords, which store behind his wings. There is an opening in the swords that peg into this opening back here on his wings, and the back of his wings are molded to more or less seamlessly fit this in without it jutting out. And he does have two swords. They are identical, and they are cast in a gray plastic, the same plastic that's used to encase his friction missiles. And they're quite nice. They're a little short for my tastes, but and you can see they are the same swords that came with Starscream, but they're molded in translucent gray plastic instead of translucent orange plastic. And they can be held in either of his hands. Personally, I prefer him with one sword. But two works just fine as well. I will say, if anything, it's especially hard to get the swords in his hands is a little easier with Starscream. This is making me nervous. Okay, there we are. And even if you do get his swords in his hands, you cannot push them down very far. The hilt won't go down. Alright, speaking of Starscream, for that comparison, here he is next to Starscream. You can see, I think, the colors and the color placement, namely the greater amount of paint on Ramjet, really differentiate, pardon me, the two figures. And here he is next to G-Axis. And I think the fact that G-Axis almost looks like a whole new mold for Starscream, that they both look quite different as well. I think Ramjet's fantastic. The execution on him is superb, and personally, ever since we got the Armada Starscream mold, I really wanted an update of the original Universe 3003 Ramjet, and this figure really does the job well. Unfortunately, this is the last figure, or the last incentive figure, at least, from the Transformers Collectors Club run by Fun Publications. Perhaps look at something else to replace him, I'm not sure. Personally, I enjoyed a lot of their figures. This happens to be my favorite that I own. But, yeah, I'm sad to see them go. This has been the video review for the Transformers Collectors Club 2016 incentive figure Ramjet. I am Starscream 065. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.